In February 2026, the Mexican military tracked a man to a mountain hideout and killed him in a hail of gunfire. And within hours, 20 states across Mexico erupted in fire and chaos. That man was the leader of a cartel that had expanded into over 40 countries, and his death set off the worst wave of retaliatory violence the country had seen in decades. The men who sit at the top of the world's drug empires share something. They all rose from nothing, and they all left behind a body count. So here are the most dangerous cartel bosses the world has ever seen, and why each one changed the game forever. Before there was a Sinaloa cartel, before there was El Chapo, before there were tunnels and submarines and fentanyl labs, there was one man who controlled it all. Miguel Ángel Félix Gallardo, known as the Godfather, controlled all drug trafficking in Mexico as well as along the country's border with the United States. He started a system that every single cartel boss after him copied, inherited, or fought over. And the way he built it was unlike anything law enforcement had ever seen. The Guadalajara cartel was co-founded by Félix Gallardo between 1978 and 1980, marking the next phase in the cartel's history. Under Gallardo's leadership, the cartel controlled much of Mexico's drug trafficking corridors along the U.S. border throughout the 1980s. This was a man who did not get his hands dirty if he could avoid it. He wore suits. He attended dinner parties with politicians. He moved through the halls of power like a businessman, not a gangster, because in his mind he was a businessman, one whose product happened to be cocaine. The Guadalajara cartel was the mothership, founded by Félix Gallardo, Ernesto Fonseca Carrillo, and Rafael Caro Quintero. The Guadalajara cartel was among the first to work with and significantly prosper from the cocaine trade, started in Colombia. While Colombian cartels were producing the cocaine, it was Félix Gallardo who figured out that Mexico was the perfect corridor to funnel that product into the United States. He brokered deals directly with the Colombian producers, establishing a pipeline that would generate billions. But what made Félix Gallardo different from every kingpin that came before him was his organizational genius. He didn't just run a cartel, he designed one. He realized that a single centralized organization could be taken down with a single arrest. So he did something revolutionary. Félix Gallardo divided up his federation by 1987, just 2 years after the capture and murder of DEA agent Enrique Camarena Salazar, when the threat from American law enforcement became much more pressing. This division of the organization in the late 1980s led to the cartel essentially being made up of several smaller cartels that controlled their own territories and trafficking corridors with their own bosses. This would make it less likely that the whole organization would be brought down all at once. That single decision created the modern Mexican drug landscape. One of these cartels was Sinaloa, with the city of Culiacán acting as its headquarters. Others became the Tijuana cartel, the Juarez cartel, and the Gulf cartel. Every major criminal organization that has terrorized Mexico over the last 4 decades traces its DNA back to this one man's playbook. But the Godfather's reign collapsed with a single event. Rafael Caro Quintero, one of Gallardo's partners, ordered the kidnapping, torture, and murder of DEA agent Enrique Kiki Camarena in 1985. The American government was furious. The pressure from Washington became overwhelming. Following Gallardo's arrest in 1989, the cartel splintered into smaller organizations, including the Sinaloa cartel. The man who created the blueprint was locked away, and the lieutenants he had empowered fought over the pieces. What followed was a decades-long war, one that is still being waged today. Then Pablo Escobar wrote the blueprint for cartel terror. Pablo Escobar was a notorious Colombian drug lord who led the Medellin cartel, becoming one of the world's most powerful drug traffickers in the 1980s and early 90s. His name is practically a synonym for the drug trade itself, and the numbers he put up in his prime are almost impossible to comprehend. At the height of its power, the Medellin cartel dominated the cocaine trade, earning an estimated $420 million a week, and making Escobar one of the wealthiest people in the world. That is not $420 million a year. That is every single week. In 1989, Forbes magazine declared Escobar as the 7th richest man in the world, with an estimated personal fortune of $30 billion. Escobar came from nothing. Soon after his birth, Escobar's family moved to Envigado, Colombia, a suburb of Medellin. His early illegal activities included selling fake diplomas, smuggling stereo equipment, and stealing tombstones to resell. That's where it started, selling stolen headstones. And from that grotesque beginning, he climbed, clawed, and killed his way to the top of the global cocaine market. In the 1980s, the organization is estimated to have supplied over 80% of all cocaine shipped to the country, sending across some 15 tons per day. 15 tons of cocaine every day, flowing through routes that spanned continents. Escobar didn't just participate in the cocaine trade, he consumed it entirely. He monopolized the supply chain from the coca fields of Peru and Bolivia, all the way to the streets of Miami. The methods he used to protect this empire were as inventive as they were ruthless. His carrot-and-stick strategy of bribing public officials in the Colombian government and sending hitmen to murder the ones who rejected his bribes came to be known as silver or lead, or money or bullets. The phrase plata o plomo became the mantra of his empire: accept the bribe or accept the bullet. There was no third option. Escobar's criminal empire resulted in the deaths of around 4,000 people who dared to challenge his reign, including police officers, government officials, journalists, and judges. He bombed a commercial airliner. He bombed the headquarters of Colombia's secret police. He waged an outright narco-terrorist campaign against the Colombian state, specifically to prevent extradition to the United States. And for a time, it worked. The government folded and agreed to let him design his own prison. Facing a manhunt, Escobar surrendered in 1991, but continued his criminal activities from La Catedral, a luxurious prison he built himself. Not only did the facility include a nightclub, sauna, waterfall, and soccer field, but it also had telephones, computers, and fax machines. The man literally negotiated his own incarceration and then turned the prison into a luxury resort. He continued running the cartel from behind those walls as if nothing had changed. But even Escobar had limits. After Escobar tortured and killed 2 cartel members at La Catedral, officials decided to move him to a less accommodating prison. Escobar escaped in 1992. Now a fugitive, hunted by the Colombian military, the DEA, the CIA, the rival Cali Cartel, and a paramilitary vigilante group called Los Pepes. Escobar's sphere of influence shrank with every passing day. His allies were killed or captured one by one. His fortune dwindled. The next day, his hideout in Medellin was discovered. He was killed in a shootout with Colombian authorities on December 20, 1993, the day after his 44th birthday. Pablo Escobar was shot dead on a rooftop in Medellin. His killing was mourned, and his funeral attended by over 25,000 people. The king of cocaine was dead, but the throne he created was never destroyed. It was simply fought over by the next generation, and one of those men waiting in the wings over in Mexico was about to become something Escobar never quite achieved: invisible. While Pablo Escobar was waging war against an entire nation in Colombia, a quieter and far more enigmatic figure was building his own empire on the other side of the border. As a top drug lord in Mexico, Amado Carrillo was transporting 4 times more cocaine to the US than any other trafficker, building a fortune of over $25 billion. His name was Amado Carrillo Fuentes, and he earned a title that captured his brilliance and his audacity. The Lord of the Skies. This name stemmed from the fact that he was the first drug lord to use private planes to transport cocaine worldwide. That wasn't a fleet of small Cessna puddle jumpers like other traffickers used. These were massive commercial-grade jets, capable of moving tons of cocaine in a single flight, landing on private airstrips scattered across Mexico. The sheer scale of his aviation operation dwarfed anything the drug world had ever seen. Born in the small village of Guamachilito in Sinaloa, Mexico, Amado Carrillo Fuentes grew up surrounded by agriculture and drugs. Though his father was a modest landowner, his uncle Ernesto Fonseca Carrillo led the Guadalajara cartel. His bloodline placed him directly in the center of Felix Gallardo's old empire, and he learned the trade from the ground up. Initially, Carrillo was part of the Guadalajara cartel, sent to Ojinaga, Chihuahua, to oversee the cocaine shipments of his uncle, Ernesto Fonseca Carrillo, and to learn about border operations from Pablo Acosta Villarreal and Rafael Aguilar Guajardo. He was a patient student. He watched. He listened. And when the time came to seize power, he was merciless. Fuentes was the head of the Juarez cartel, achieving this title after killing former boss and friend Rafael Aguilar Guajardo. What made Carrillo Fuentes extraordinary was his combination of operational boldness and personal secrecy. Unlike other Mexican drug kingpins who became household names and faces in the 90s, like Joaquin El Chapo Guzman Loera, Carrillo Fuentes was one of the most mysterious men in Mexico, as he lived discreetly, with no wild shootouts and late-night disco hopping. Few pictures of him reportedly appeared in newspapers or television in the past years. While Escobar flaunted his riches and El Chapo would later wage open war in the streets, Carrillo operated from the shadows. He used high-tech surveillance devices during his reign as Juarez cartel head in order to spy on other cartel leaders. Carrillo worked with Pablo Escobar and the Cali cartel, smuggling drugs from Colombia to Mexico and the United States. He also worked with El Chapo, the Arellano Felix family, and the Beltran Leyva organization. The man was a broker. He could negotiate with every single major criminal organization on the continent simultaneously, playing each side to maximize his own profits. In the drug world, most bosses pick sides. Carrillo Fuentes picked every side. The drug baron also excelled in corrupting Mexican politicians and law enforcement officials to guarantee impunity for his actions. Earlier this year, Mexico's top anti-drug official was jailed for allegedly being on Carrillo's payroll. His corruption network was so deep that the very people tasked with catching him were feeding him information instead. But the pressure eventually mounted. US and Mexican authorities were closing in. As he mused about moving his operation to Chile, Carrillo resolved to undergo severe plastic surgery to change his appearance. On July 4, 1997, Amado Carrillo Fuentes checked into a private Mexico City clinic. Under the alias Antonio Flores Montes, for 8 hours, he underwent surgery to drastically alter his face and remove 3.5 gallons of fat from his body. The man who had evaded every intelligence agency on the planet bet his life on a surgeon's knife, and he lost. Carrillo died due to said complications in the early hours of July 5, 1997. The official cause was cardiac arrest, triggered by a lethal combination of medications. He was 42 years old. What happened next was chilling. On November 7, 1997, the 2 surgeons who performed Carrillo's surgery were found dead, encased in concrete inside steel drums, with their bodies showing signs of torture. A third body was also found in a matching barrel, just as mangled as the other 2, and is presumed to have been a third doctor who assisted in the surgery. Whoever was responsible, whether Carrillo's allies seeking vengeance or his rivals eliminating witnesses, made sure no one could ever tell the full story of what happened in that operating room. And so the Lord of the Skies passed into legend, leaving behind billions of dollars, a shattered cartel, and a mystery that to this day some people believe was never solved. The man who filled the vacuum left by the crumbling old guard of Mexican drug trafficking was born in the mountains of Sinaloa, in a region where poverty and poppy fields were the only things that grew. Joaquin Archibaldo Guzman Loera, commonly known as El Chapo, is a Mexican former drug lord and the former top leader of the Sinaloa cartel. Guzman is the most notorious drug lord of all time, according to the U.S. Drug Enforcement Administration. Guzman was born in Sinaloa and raised in a poor farming family. He endured much physical abuse at the hands of his father, through whom he also entered the drug trade, helping him grow marijuana for local dealers during his early adulthood. When he was a teenager, his father kicked him out of the house, and he went to live with his grandfather. It was during his adolescence that Guzman gained the nickname El Chapo, Mexican slang for shorty, for his 1.68-meter stature and stocky physique. He was short, stocky, and had no formal education, and he built the largest drug trafficking operation in history. He began his criminal career in the 1980s as a member of the Guadalajara drug cartel. Headed by Miguel Ángel Felix Gallardo, Guzman rapidly rose through the ranks of the organization. When it disbanded in the late 1980s, he became a leader in the Sinaloa cartel. From the ashes of Felix Gallardo's old empire, Guzman carved out his own kingdom, and his genius was logistics. He achieved this by pioneering the use of distribution cells and long-range tunnels near borders, which enabled him to export more drugs to the United States than any other trafficker in history. Under his guidance, the Sinaloa cartel developed creative smuggling techniques and strategies, including building air-conditioned tunnels under the Mexico-US border, hiding drugs in chili pepper cans and fire extinguishers, and catapulting drugs over the border. Air-conditioned tunnels, chili pepper cans, catapults. This wasn't just a drug operation, it was an engineering project operating at industrial scale. Guzman's leadership of the cartel also brought immense wealth and power. Forbes ranked him as one of the most powerful people in the world between 2009 and 2013, while the Drug Enforcement Administration estimated that he matched the influence and wealth of Colombian drug lord Pablo Escobar. But it was his prison escapes that catapulted him into the realm of legend. In January 2001, he escaped from Mexico's Puente Grande maximum security prison. Some accounts said he left the lockup hidden in a laundry cart, but more recent accounts suggest he walked out dressed in a guard's uniform, accompanied by corrupt officers. His escape exposed widespread corruption in the Mexican prison system, with dozens of guards and officials implicated in helping him flee. The seriously embarrassing moment for Mexican officials helped elevate Guzman's reputation to near-mythic status. He was eventually recaptured in February 2014. Then, on 11 July 2015, El Chapo escaped from a maximum security prison, which is his second successful jailbreak from a maximum security facility in 14 years. He escaped through a tunnel in his prison cell, a mile-long tunnel, complete with lights, ventilation, and a modified motorcycle on rails. The entire world watched in disbelief as Mexico's most dangerous prisoner disappeared into the earth for the second time. Guzman resumed his command of the Sinaloa cartel. However, on 8 January 2016, Guzman was captured again during a raid on a home in the city of Los Mochis, in Guzman's home state of Sinaloa. This time, there would be no third escape. He was extradited to the United States, tried in a Brooklyn courtroom, and sentenced to life in prison. Guzman is believed to be responsible for the deaths of over 34,000 people and was considered to be the most powerful drug trafficker in the world, until he was extradited to the United States and sentenced to life in prison. But even behind bars in a Supermax facility in Colorado, El Chapo's legacy didn't end, it metastasized. Several sons of the now jailed former Sinaloa cartel leader Joaquin Guzman Loera have emerged among the most influential criminal groups in Mexico. Joaquin Guzman Lopez, Ovidio Guzman Lopez, Ivan Archivaldo Guzman Salazar, and Jesus Alfredo Guzman Salazar, known collectively as the Chapitos, have become increasingly influential in the synthetic drug trade and other criminal economies in north and western Mexico. While their father built his empire on cocaine and heroin smuggling into the United States from Mexico, Los Chapitos expanded the gang's operations into synthetic drugs and digital tools, embracing fentanyl for its potency, profitability, and portability. The Sinaloa cartel, even with El Chapo locked away and his sons arrested or on the run, has not stopped. As of 2025, the cartel remains Mexico's most dominant drug cartel. Experts warned that arresting them would not dismantle the Sinaloa cartel, because it is vast, resilient, and adaptable, and often regenerates leadership from within. The machine El Chapo built simply absorbed the shock and kept running. While El Chapo was building tunnels and breaking out of prisons, a different kind of cartel boss was rising in the state of Jalisco. Where El Chapo courted fame, this man hunted anonymity. Where the Sinaloa cartel relied on corruption and negotiation, this man relied on raw, overwhelming force. His name was Nemesio Oseguera Cervantes, and the world knew him as El Mencho. The Jalisco New Generation Cartel, CJNG, is a key supplier of illicit fentanyl to the United States, and one of Mexico's most powerful, influential, and ruthless transnational criminal organizations. Forming around 2011 out of the remnants of the Sinaloa cartel, affiliated Milenio Cartel, CJNG has become independent from key members linked by blood ties or marriage to the Gonzales Valencia money laundering organization known as Los Quinis. What set El Mencho apart from every cartel boss before him was the way he weaponized his organization. His cartel deployed drones, rocket launchers, and improvised explosives against security forces. The cartel has been noted for cannibalizing some victims during the training of new sicarios or members, as well as using drones and rocket-propelled grenades to attack enemies. This was not an old-school narco operation bribing police officers at border crossings. This was a paramilitary force equipped with military-grade weaponry, waging open war against the Mexican state itself. Under Oseguera Cervantes' leadership, CJNG has expanded its operations well beyond Mexico's borders, establishing a presence in over 40 countries. The cartel uses its vast financial resources, unique franchise-based command structure, proclivity for violence, and access to corrupt officials to maintain and expand its influence over Mexico's illicit drug trade. Over 40 countries. A franchise-based command structure. This was a transnational enterprise masquerading as a cartel. The United States placed a $15 million bounty on him before his death in February 2026. For perspective, the bounty on Osama bin Laden was $25 million. El Mencho was the second most wanted man alive, right behind the world's terrorists. His comparisons to history's conquerors were not accidental. He trained them almost like Genghis Khan in their approach to conquest, one analyst said. They would wipe out opposition and use that as a warning. If you oppose us, this is what will happen to you. The CJNG's reign of terror was calculated and systematic, designed not just to control territory, but to psychologically dominate the population. Then, on a cold morning in the mountains of Jalisco, it all came to an end. On the 22nd of February 2026, Mexican military and law enforcement agents undertook an operation in Tapalpa, Jalisco, to capture or kill Nemesio El Mencho Oseguera Cervantes, the leader of the Jalisco New Generation Cartel, CJNG, and the most wanted man in both Mexico and the U.S. In the days immediately preceding the operation, military intelligence tracked the movements of a trusted associate, connected to a romantic partner of Oseguera. On the 20th of February 2026, data from this surveillance indicated that the associate had transported the partner to a residence within the Tapalpa Country Club, where Oseguera was believed to be staying. Security forces confirmed that the partner met with Oseguera at the property before departing on the 21st of February. The most wanted man in the Western Hemisphere was undone by a visit from a loved one. As federal troops advanced toward the property, CJNG gunmen opened fire, triggering an intense exchange of gunfire in the surrounding mountainous terrain. Cartel members used high-caliber firearms and other heavy weaponry in an attempt to repel the assault. Amid the firefight, Oseguera attempted to escape into the surrounding terrain with 4 members of his security detail. A team of Special Forces personnel split off and pursued him beyond the main structure, leading to a second armed confrontation in the nearby wooded area. During a firefight, 8 CJNG members were killed and several others gravely wounded, among them El Mencho. Mexican authorities said the crime boss later died while being transported to Mexico City for medical treatment. The killing of El Mencho is the most significant elimination of a cartel leader since Pablo Escobar, offering a major symbolic victory for the U.S. But what happened next showed exactly why cartel bosses are so dangerous, because their empires don't die with them. The killing set off violence in some 20 Mexican states. Over 70 people, including 25 Mexican National Guard troops, were killed during the operation and subsequent clashes. Between the security forces and CJNG gunmen, criminal actors hijacked and burned vehicles, attacked gas stations and small businesses, deployed tire spikes on roadways, and engaged security forces in multiple armed confrontations. Oseguera was buried in Zapopan following an elaborate funeral ceremony on the 30 March that saw him interred in a golden casket. A golden casket for a man whose cartel had deployed rocket launchers against Mexican soldiers and flooded the United States with fentanyl. On the 18th of March 2026, the Wall Street Journal reported that Juan Carlos Valencia Gonzalez, the throne passed, the drug supply continued, the violence recalibrated. That is the truth about the most dangerous cartel bosses in history. From Felix Gallardo's boardroom-style empire in the 1980s to El Mencho's paramilitary juggernaut in 2026, the pattern is always the same. A man rises from nothing. He builds an empire on cocaine or heroin or fentanyl. He corrupts governments, eliminates rivals, and amasses a fortune that dwarfs the GDP of nations. And then he is killed or captured, and someone else steps in to take his place, often more violent than the last. The game doesn't end. The faces change. The blood keeps flowing.